Hi everyone, welcome back. I'm Michael Sandler, your host on Inspire Nation. If you've ever lost your power and wanted to gain it back, then do we have the Burn Zone show for you. Today I'll be talking with Renee Linnell, serial entrepreneur, Argentinian tango dancer, surfer extraordinaire, and the author of a powerful memoir on regaining your power, The Burn Zone. And that's just what I want to talk with her about today, about how easy it is to lose your power and what you can do to regain it. That, plus we'll talk about Doc Marten boots, circling nurse sharks, executive MBAs, back in black and crazy train, burning Armani jackets, new one that is, a boat called Chance 2, Alvin and the Chipmunks, You Can Do This Futon, and what in the world pole dancing and pink Mustangs has to do with anything. Gotcha. So welcome to the show, Renee. Are you ready to shine?
I am. What an introduction. Thank you.
I had to pull out some of the highlights, some of the fun moments in there. We didn't even get to do a 135 miles an hour cruise control and magic carpet ride. So before we dive right into things, before we get to that pink Mustang, where'd you spend your earliest days and what does a dinghy have to do with anything?
Oh, I spent my earliest days on a boat in the Bahamas, bouncing between there and Snowmass Village, Colorado.
Very, very cool.
Oh, and the dinghy. My father, because he had survived 5 invasions in World War II, he established independence in us at a young age, my twin brother and me. So we were allowed to take the dinghy out by ourselves as long as we were back before dark.
Now, I didn't get the dinghy experience. Well, I grew up with a lot of boats. I grew up with both a fishing and lawyer family. It's a whole long story, but in Gloucester, Massachusetts. And so I grew up around boats, in boats, everything boats. But because I wasn't living right on the water, I didn't have a boat to go play around in on my own. However, my mom had a very unique way of calling me home. She had a foghorn. And so she would use the boat horn at night. 1 boat toot meant get home. 2 meant you're dead for not getting home on the first toot. You might as well not come home.
That's a very Massachusetts story, I think. I was born in Boston.
Oh, okay. I'm Danvers. So just up the road from there.
Well, my father spent a lot of his life in Boston, and I think that's where he fell in love with boats, in Massachusetts.
It makes sense. One of my more famous stories is capsizing a sailboat on the Charles.
Oh.
And having to get rescued. And it made me think of the song because I love that dirty water. Oh, Boston, you're my home.
My God.
All right, let's go from there. And I hate to ask this, but it kind of really leads into your story. You were exposed to a lot of people passing away on you early in your life. How do you think that affected you?
It affected me very deeply in the fact that as my family started to die around me, culminating with my father on Thanksgiving Day when I was 15, I just thought there has got to be more to life than what I'm learning in church and in school. And we love each other so much, and then we lose each other. And that just seemed cruel. And so it sent me at 15 years old searching for answers to the big questions in life, like why are we here? What comes after we die? What's our purpose? So you can imagine that made me a very different teenager.
And probably added to some social awkwardness of growing up on a boat, small, hanging out with your twin brother, which gets into the whole question of where the name Renee come from. Actually, I got to go there. We discussed it beforehand, but I got to go there. And then on your soul-seeking path, where did the name Renee come from and why is it so important?
It's so important because my parents tried for 10 years to have children, and my mother wanted them so badly she didn't want to be alive without them, and they kept having miscarriages. And then they finally had a baby. She was pregnant full term, 9 months, with a little girl that they were naming Renee. And she gave birth to a stillborn. And everybody was just destroyed by that. And she said when all the chaos was happening in the hospital room, she felt overwhelmed with peace. And she could feel, she was very Catholic, and she could feel God saying to her, just wait, it's going to turn out better than you could possibly imagine. And she felt her whole being just float in this peace. And then she got pregnant with twins, my brother and me. And they decided to name my brother Gary, but they couldn't come up with a name for me. And my father was incredibly attached to the name Renee and wanted to keep it. And she said, we can't. We already had a Renee. She died. And oh, it's going to make me cry. But he went and looked up a book of names and he said, look, Renee means reborn. And when I heard that story, I was sure that I was that first baby, that I came into this world for a brief second and I felt the extreme psychic pain of it. And I left to get a partner and I came back later.
Very, very cool. I got goosebumps. It begets a really difficult question. Please forgive me for asking this. I can even strike it off the record if we need to. The amount of gratitude your mom must have had when knowing she was pregnant again or carrying kids to full term had to have been immense. But afterwards, you did not exactly become her favorite child, which was fascinating to me, because here you are voting to come back in and she got it on some level.
And so the question, I mean, yes, that was true.
Well, the question is, have you thought about that? Because that peppered your whole existence too. We're talking about losing our power. And when we lose our power, it's oftentimes when people point out our wounds. And that often has to comes from our childhood. I believe that our parents, we chose them to teach us the most amazing lessons. And on the other side, we'll laugh about these things later on. The masks, the costumes we wear. Your mom wore a very interesting costume growing up because you didn't get the easiest ride from your mom.
Right. And I do believe we choose our parents. And my mother just emotionally abused the crap out of me until I believed that I was no good at anything. And I have to say that my journey through everything, the healing, was self-love. And finally getting to that place where I understand, as children, we're surrounded by adults that a lot of them don't know who they are. They don't know how to love themselves. They're not drawing from source or something bigger than themselves. And so unfortunately, the love that they give us is kind of a broken, not full love. And then we develop our sense of self-worth based on how somebody who's not in alignment feels about us. I think it happens all the time. And so it was my journey, and I think it's all of our journey, to finally realize we're amazing, we're incredibly worthy, and only people that know how amazing they are can truly see that in us. Everyone else projects their own wounds onto us.
Woohoo!
So that's what she did to me.
And the woohoo's not about the wound. It's about this journey to self-love and discovering or remembering. I believe we came here with collective amnesia for the reason so that we could expand, so we could open our hearts. And if we got that to begin with, when there's nothing to do, go hang out in the cave and eat your bonbons.
Right.
But you got the full Monty, so to speak, so that you could learn how to remember your power, how to remember how great you truly are.
And so that I can have compassion for those that don't, to understand what it feels like, to understand that when we don't love ourselves, we're not very nice to be around, or that people that aren't nice to be around, that are mean, they're just suffering. And I feel like if you just pop into this world and you have no suffering and you love yourself and you think you're great, you would never understand humanity.
So let's go from there in understanding humanity.
Okay.
Can you tell us what your life was like prior to June 2006 and what happened that one night?
So from the outside looking in, my life was amazing. I traveled the world as a surf model and a bikini model and a professional Argentine tango dancer. I'd been to more than 50 countries by the time I was 35, financially secure, this great life. And I was soul sick. And no matter what I had in my life, I felt so empty inside and sad, and nothing filled the void. I mean, the next boyfriend was exciting for a couple months, and then I felt sad inside. And then the next boyfriend, and then I felt sad inside. And I was searching and I was seeking, but people out there were not talking about somebody who has everything and is still unhappy. So I thought I was the only one. In June 2006, I walked into a meditation seminar. And of course, that's how I opened the book. I sat in the front row and I closed my eyes to meditate in front of the teacher. And I felt this energy shoot up my spine, out the top of my head, and everything went white and my world went white. And the peace that flooded into my mind was so overwhelming. I felt like I was being held in the hands of God. And I said, this is what I'm searching for. This is it. I don't care who this woman is. I don't care what she says. I'm home. I'm never leaving.
In fact, getting to the title of the book, it seems like you were probably like a dazed deer in headlights.
Yes.
When you raised your hand
Yeah.
and said, what just happened?
Yes. And she said, she knew. She said, you're sitting in the burn zone. You might want to move back a few rows. The energy is really intense up here. And so she was talking about being that close to her is why I had that experience.
Looking back, why do you think you had the experience?
I think, and this question gives me goosebumps, I think it's because it is what we are, what we all are. And when we finally stop our minds and meditate, we feel it. And so many of us erroneously attribute it to the person that is in front of the room, or the yoga class, or the drug, or whatever it is.
You said something exceptionally profound to a friend of yours. I believe it was Emily. You said something exceptionally profound when you were considering becoming, you had applied to become a personal student.
Oh, she said she didn't apply because she was terrified the teacher was going to see right through her and break her into a million pieces. And I said, that's exactly what I'm hoping for.
We got to be careful what we wish for, don't
Yeah.
we?
Oh my gosh. Yes. Yeah. That's what I wish for. That's what I got.
So, but it's interesting because we have those wounds inside of us. We erroneously think what I need to do is be broken, is be torn apart, that there's something wrong with me, that until it's exorcised somehow, I can't be whole.
It's true. And it's very sad. And I think we're taught that. I think that we come in as perfect little gooey balls of love, totally unique, weird in all the best ways. And then unfortunately, we're taught by the adults around us, slow down, be quiet. Little girls don't do that. Nice boys don't do that. And we're so desperate to be loved and accepted that we change. We change however we need to change to fit in and to not be abandoned. And so we think, well, something's awfully wrong with me because the only way I can fit in is by hiding all this weird stuff about me.
Yeah.
So it is an undoing process, I think, for all of us.
Thank you. You said something really profound in there. You said, desperate to be loved and accepted. So you've gone there. You're applying to become a personal student. You were feeling this desperate to be loved and accepted. Where did it start to lead you?
Well, I thought that I had found a tribe, finally, a tribe of people that were similar to me, and a bunch of people wanting to become enlightened and wanting to be the best versions of themselves. And then the teacher said, in the East, people have these beautiful spiritual practices, but they live in poverty. And in the West, people have these great careers, but they're soul sick. So she combined this meditating, sharpening your mind practice from the East, and then using your career as your spiritual practice and bringing the best of you every moment in your career, which would help you get promoted, make more money, create a life where you can meditate better and give back to the world through philanthropy.
Which I must say sounds pretty awesome.
Sounds great, right? And so in the beginning, it just led me to a really great meditation practice, becoming a computer programmer, starting to train to get my black belt in karate, eventually running their company, getting an MBA from NYU. So I think like any toxic relationship, it started off with romance.
And if we jump ahead, actually, well, I'm wondering if we should jump ahead or just tell the story. Let's tell a little bit more of the story. Then we'll go into the chapter where you kind of became a forensic scientist and you broke down step by step how we start to give away our power.
Okay.
Was one of the earliest steps starting to estrange yourself from your friends?
Yes. And I notice now on the other side of it that this group did the same thing that toxic relationships of any kind do, which is they build you up. If you went on a first date and somebody hit you or said something abusive, you don't go on a second date, but they make you feel loved and seen and cherished. And then they manipulate your time. So you start to spend more and more time with the person, or in my situation, the group. And they gave us so many tasks to do, and outings, and field trips, and events. And so we spent more and more time focused on them. So less and less time doing things that I loved, like surfing and dancing and spending time with friends outside the group. And so then the group think kicks in, and you want to spend more time with the people in the group. And as the support structure of friends and family and empowering activities starts to fade away, once that happens, they introduce self-doubt. And that's the surest way to strip anybody of their power.
As that doubt is kicking in, are they saying, here's what you need to work on. You're not worthy, but here's how to get into the light?
Yes. And that is what many spiritual groups, I don't want to say all spiritual groups, but that's the bad spiritual groups, let's say, this is how they do it. Because those of us that join were so desperate to become enlightened and saint-like. And there's this misconception out there that in order to do that, you have to get rid of every part of you that's human. And so they were telling us we had to sand away our egos, that it was the hardest path there is because it was tantric Buddhist mysticism, and you live in the world. And every moment in life is your spiritual practice. She said anyone can act saintly in an ashram on top of a pristine mountain, but try to act saintly when you're in a subway car in Manhattan after a 12-hour workday. And so she said the only way to become enlightened is to change. And changing is really difficult, and you'll want to quit. Only a warrior can walk this path.
See, that's such a tease. It's saying, I have to, it's going to be torture. It's going to be hard. And I've got to really want to go for it. And so it makes you feel like, I want to commit to this path. I'll do whatever it takes.
And then I was reading all these books on saints in the past and the torture that their teachers put them through. You know, the legends, like you had to jump off a mountain and crush your body and die, and then you'd be reincarnated and at the guru's feet. And I was such a believer. And I think those of us that are seekers, we understand intuitively that what we're being presented with by the world isn't everything. There's more to it. And so our minds are so malleable to find a different way. And once we do, we go all in. A lot of us do.
I know a lot. I know of a handful of cult stories, very similar to this in many ways. One of them that really saddened me was a woman who loved to ride her bicycle and was told she could no longer ride her bicycle. In fact, years later, the organization asked her to run a group bike ride for people, but she still couldn't ride her bike. And it made me think of you and my heart. It's maybe a subtle moment in the book, but I don't think it was a subtle moment in your life when you're asked to give up dance and to go for computers.
Yes. And I was born to dance. Every time I dance, people stop what they're doing and watch. When I dance, it lightens an entire room. It turns a room into a party, and it liberates people. And so I gave up dancing because they told me I had to, and it was soul crushing. But I have to say that when I found dancing on the other side of it all, woohoo, gosh, yeah.
So, and we'll talk another piece of this liberation, and this on the surface when we read about the spiritual path and we read about ascetics, which is not the Buddhist middle way, actually, we hear about getting rid of everything. Not really the Buddhist path, which we were supposedly being taught the Buddhist path. But here you are at what seemed like to me a bonfire, and you're going, oops, there goes the brand new Armani jacket too.
Yes. I burned. So I'm extreme. And I decided if I was going to hire a coach, to get a gold medal in the Olympics, I would do everything the coach said. I would eat what the coach said to eat. I would sleep when the coach said to sleep. And so I decided if these were my teachers, I was going to do what they said. And they said, get rid of everything from your past because it holds you back. And they told us we couldn't give it away. We had to cut it up or burn it. So I burned almost everything I owned. Yeah, and that scene with the Armani jacket is somehow it ended up in the pile of stuff to burn, and I didn't notice it until it was flying into the fire.
Oh. How, looking back on it now, because it's done, we can't go back, there's no time machine, while you probably would choose to hold out at least your baby items the next time around if you had that opportunity. Looking back, part of your journey? Was it liberating in some way?
Incredibly liberating. Incredibly. I remember having a dream that right after I destroyed everything I owned, having a dream that I drove up to my house and it was on fire. And all I cared about was my cat. And she was safely in a tree. And I just grabbed her and left. And so it is very liberating to get rid of all of our possessions.
No. You said in that chapter of the book, slowly and subtly erased my entire foundation, my whole support system, everything that I love, everything that made me.
I did, slowly over years. That's another thing, is it's so insidious. They talk you through it over years. And when you have nothing left that makes you, then you're just putty in their hands.
What would you say is, it's a term I think you talk about with chickens. Should have put that in the beginning. Intermittent reinforcement.
I know, that's such a good example, the part with chickens. Intermittent reinforcement is the strongest way to strengthen behavior of any kind. And the story with the chickens is anytime they gave chickens a food pellet, the chickens would peck on this button to get the food pellet until they were full. And then if they pecked on the button and they never got food, then they would give up and stop pecking. But if they never knew when they were going to get the food, they would peck until their beaks bled, because they never knew if the next peck would bring them food. And I realized that that's what narcissists do to us, trying to get love from a narcissist and trying to get love from an addict. We're so desperate to get the reward, the love, the support, the encouragement, the validation, and we never know when we're going to get it. They give it, they take it away, they give it, they take it away. And those of us that have been raised by those types of parents, we become addicted to that love pattern. And then we seek romantic partners that give love and take it away, and give love and take it away, because the constant love is unnerving. It's overwhelming, and it feels like too much. And we almost go, there's something wrong with this person. They're too needy or something. So I was drawn to really toxic romantic partners.
Oh, it's interesting because on one level, we're talking about a cult that you ended up in. On another level, it's an abusive relationship. I had a 6.5-year abusive relationship, my first serious relationship I was in. And you're told that there are problems with you. It's something that you did. It's your fault. Then you're teased. You're given just a little bit of love. There's hope. I will hang in there. I will be Superman or Superwoman.
And we see the true essence of the person, that gooey, raw, vulnerable part. And then we think we bring that out in them. It's so beautiful. If I tried a little harder, I could bring it out a little more often. And I finally learned, no, certain people they need to go away and learn on themselves how to love themselves.
How did you begin to learn that? And I want to address one more piece. We don't have to go into all the details. Get the burn zone, fasten your seatbelt. It's a hard, rough ride, but I'd say well worth it, particularly with where you've come out the other side. If I had stopped, like I said, we had an OB appointment for my wife, Jessica. If we had stopped with the book halfway through, I would be feeling like I had just been kicked in the gut. I don't know how you went through it. You wrote it up beautifully, but one piece that really was like, how do you, everything I think inside of you is screaming to get out. On some level, you still hang in there, and then you get ordained. What did that do to your mind?
Oh my gosh. Well, again, the teacher was brilliant, because she said walking this path is the hardest path there is. And it's like a samurai sword where it gets heated up, pounded down, sharpened, heated up, pounded down, sharpened to become the sharpest blade there is, the strongest. And so what we were going through on this path is being heated up and pounded down. And so every time I felt pounded down by their abuse, and by my weakening state of mind, I would say, well, I'm sticking it out. I want to become the sharpest blade there is. And so I totally forgot where we're going with that.
Well, we're going with your ordination in Bhutan.
Oh, okay. So then I end up in Bhutan. By this time, I'm completely ostracized. Nobody would talk to me. I was in a room by myself.
You would think that at this point you would say, I'm out of here, folks. Now I don't even have the fam. But instead you're like, I will climb this mountain.
Digging in even harder. Yes, I'm not going to quit. And my meditation practice at this point was so strong that these mind states I was blasting into were so pristine and so exquisite that I thought I will never quit until I can show other people how to do this. And so I end up getting ordained as a monk in Bhutan. And for me, I felt like with that moment, I officially gave every part of me to God.
How did it going from there? And that's a commitment. So we can do a clarifier here, because I asked Jessica, I said, do I include the part about you being an ordained monk in the intro or not? Because you were ordained in this, we'll call it a suspect organization to say the least, but it was a commitment you were making to God. It wasn't a commitment you're making to an individual. It's like a bodhisattva
Right.
vow is for all people. It's not for this one practice.
Right. And I do think, the person that ordained me is a bipolar narcissist with like, what is it, illusions of grandeur. Her
Yep.
ability to properly ordain me is questionable. But I took it seriously. And in that moment, I said, I am only here to serve God. I'm only here to spread love and light. Every moment of my life, I want to spread light and love. And that's what my vow was.
I
In
think
my
that
mind, that's what I was doing.
I think that's why I'm so excited to have you on the show today,
Thank
is
you.
you've got that going on.
Thank you.
So how did things start to fall apart after that? And when and why were you finally giving a merciful kicking out?
Well, that's the best part of the story, right? How do you get kicked out of a cult? You screw
Yeah.
the guru's boyfriend. And
Oh,
it's kind of a spoiler alert, but
but it
yeah,
wasn't even, it's a spoiler alert, but this was not your conscious, I've got to defend you against whatever anybody could possibly think. This was the most gut-wrenching, twisting, oh my God, and you were trying to keep your head above water as best as anybody in the world could possibly do.
I was. And my intuition was gone. My support structure was gone. Everything I owned was gone. My sanity was gone. And then I got kicked out I got that phone call that I was supposed to leave the group within 48 hours and go off and get an MBA from one of the hardest business schools in the world with a background in dance. And then start a business that made $10 million profit after taxes, and then I could come back to the group and give them the money. Right. And I went off to do it. I left. And I just had so much faith that this was my path to enlightenment, that I would be protected, that I would get into the school, that I would have support. And our minds are so incredibly strong. And because I believed I was still walking this path to enlightenment, I was able to pull off a lot of it. But then the intuition being ruined, I entered into some really bad situations.
Hiratomi, I have to think. Now, it wasn't my 250 plus 58,000, but I have to think that actually somehow, and maybe you can share a brief version of the story with people, I think it liberated you. I think it was like, oh, at this point, screw it. Anything's open. I'm just going to laugh at everything because this is just too out there.
Crazy. Yes. So that was the boyfriend in New York, and I was getting my black belt in karate and trying to start the business with him, and not reading the signs that this person wasn't the best person to go into business with. So I lost a lot of money, hundreds of thousands of dollars. The business I built, slandered all over the New York tabloids as the jaded lover who left her business partner because he wouldn't have sex with her. And that, I think, is what started the shattering, actually. That not only, well, that started the shattering. Just my whole paradigm of the world. Here I am trying to spread love and light, and I'm just getting creamed. And then the shattering is the undoing, and then the beginning of the healing.
How did you begin to heal?
I started by allowing myself finally to be so broken. There's this human tendency, which is so amazing, to just get up, just get up, just get up and keep going. And I finally realized I couldn't get up. I just had to lay in it, in that dark mess. And then slowly but surely, the little things, like, what do I love? A cup of coffee, or a walk in nature, or sitting by the fire, or watching it snow. And finally, I had no energy left to be anything that I wasn't, like no stories to tell, no facades to keep. Stopped trying to be who I thought I needed to be and just started trying to figure out who I was. And it took a long time. It took 5 years. I thought I was going to move to Colorado, heal, and write books and be a best-selling author, and doop-de-doo on with my life.
Well, here you are.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's a process. It's a real, well, it's interesting. It's like a seed that gets tamped down in the soil. You got tamped down now. Well,
I did. And it's so beautiful on the other side, because what I realized that we were talking about dancing is, as I started to add back into, after being so broken and so confused and so lost, as I added back into my life the quirky things that I loved, like dancing and surfing and drinking tequila and dressing kind of promiscuously, all this stuff that I'd let go of. With each thing I added back, it brought so much joy. And I thought, oh my gosh, me just being me is so fun. And I'm really good at it. And then when I'm good at it and I'm having fun, I'm actually nice to be around because I'm so happy. And I started realizing I can spread light every moment of every day just by being happy, by getting in a car 15 minutes early so I'm not a jerk in traffic, or leaving a larger tip, to make a stranger's day, or smiling when I don't feel like it. So yeah, it was liberating becoming me finally.
woohoo!
Yeah.
You're back in Colorado. You say, all right, the mission isn't love. The mission is me. Where did you begin? Where do others begin when we're on this journey and WTF is flashing all over the screen? We're shattered. We're laying down. We're not, like you reference in the book, wanting to be Trinity, just get up. And you're going, that's it. I surrender. I'm shattered. How do we start?
It takes me to the movie of The Wizard of Oz, where Dorothy could click her heels 3 times and go home. Yeah. And I realize we can end it any moment we want. We can pull the plug. We can be done. And so when I was lying there, like, I can end this. I can be done. Do I really want to? Is there anything I would miss? Oh, I would miss snowboarding, and I would miss coffee, and I would miss calling my brother, and I would miss just getting in the car and being able to go wherever I want. And so I started doing those things, like, okay, if I'm going to pull the plug, let me just do this for another day or another 2 days, and then suddenly, as I filled my day with all those things that I would miss, my life was so joyful. And it's like, oh my gosh, there's so much joy to be had in this life when we let go of all the crap that doesn't matter and we just start doing what brings us joy.
I think that's the mission for Jessica and myself, particularly for her healing from, we've shared on air about the miscarriages, is we have to get her back in each moment as best we possibly can. Just do what you love right now and refill the reservoir, refill the tanks.
And then you think about the act of making a baby. It's so beautiful. Like when you just go back to forget about the creation and just loving each other and touching each other and romancing each other and the wine and the candlelight and what comes next, going back to that, then it all happens organically at the just right time. Woo-hoo! With so much joy.
Yes,
right?
Which is most important. So, all right. You've been told that you're being kicked out within 48 hours. I feel like giving music. Dun, 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 dun. You've got to get an MBA at one of the top schools. You've got to start your own company, $10 million. And and you're going, how do I even get into MBA school? What in the world? Where do I go from here? How did you flip that switch? Because you did it. You got into the top MBA school from out of society, out of everything, you got back in.
I did, and I'm really grateful for that. I just was so determined. The second I hung up the phone, I started making plans. And within 3 days, I was on the Northeast going to Yale and Harvard and MIT and Columbia, filling out applications. I moved to New York because I was sure I was going to get into Columbia. And of course, they read my resume and they were like, we don't want a 37-year-old dancer that doesn't know who she is. No way. And then I just kept taking the next step. And what I realized is, well, I could take continuing education at Columbia and I could take calculus, statistics, and economics. I hadn't taken a math class since high school.
Which could be a hindrance for an MBA program.
And I pulled off an A in calculus and a B plus in statistics and economics at Columbia. And it was crying and caffeine and tutoring and scratching and clawing my way step by step through. Yeah.
Where did you start? Where did you draw your power from? At this point, was it internal where you're starting to get your own power back, or was it still on the group?
It was still, well, it was faith based. But it was still on the group. I had faith in the teachers still. I couldn't let go of that because I had nothing left. And if I let go of that, I would have nothing. And then I believed that enlightened beings that weren't, I mean, this is so fascinating. So I believed that there were enlightened beings that weren't in the body were assisting me. And so I was able to pull off these great grades and get into this great school. And yet, that's what we all have, right? We all have this incredible inner guidance, and we can tap into so much knowledge, so much strength, so much wisdom when we believe we can. And unfortunately, I had to believe it was somebody else helping me do it. Now I believe I can do that at any moment. And we see evidence of it all the time. Women lifting cars by themselves to save a child. I mean, we're all capable of that.
There's something that just came to me that was so powerful. I've got to ask. Oh, it's such an overused question, but I can't resist.
Okay.
If you had it to do over again, what would you do?
I have to say I would do it all the same way. It feels so right now. It feels like I had to go through that. And I feel sad for the 33-year-old girl that didn't feel good enough and that felt like she had to change in order to be enlightened. I would tell her, you're perfect just the way you are. But I love the shattering process now that I'm on the other side. I really do. And I almost wonder if it's necessary. Part of me thinks it's necessary that we have to be shattered by life to become our full magnificent bloom.
It's considered the shamanic journey, to say the least. And as somebody with twin titanium femurs and twin titanium rods through my hips, I have nothing that I can say about it, because if I had it to do all over again, while those most painful moments, I would like to hit the pause or the erase, or can I get out of my body for this and not experience it? Thank God, because it made me who I am. And I'm sitting from somebody who is fully cracked open. And my guess is that while you loved aspects of life beforehand, you did not love your life.
I didn't love them as fully. I didn't see the colors as brightly or smell the smells as, profoundly. I was selfish and judgmental and self-righteous, and I'm so much more caring and compassionate now. I think my biggest fear was to die and look back at my life and say, I wish I had lived it louder. And I know for a fact that if today was my last day, I'd be like, wow, I experienced it all.
135 miles an hour in a pink Mustang 5.0 with the cruise control on. I think you have lived life loudly.
Thank you. Yeah, lots of scars and bruises, but
I guess it can go both ways. They say chicks, the expression, maybe it's chicks and guys dig scars and bones heal.
Yeah.
So what would you say if somebody is going through this right now? And it doesn't have to be to this extent. We all have these holes in our hearts, and we're all trying to, not all of us, the majority of us are trying to fill it with something outside or someone outside of ourselves. What would be your top 3 tips you'd give people for taking back their power?
I'd say you have to start with giving yourself everything you're looking for from someone else. And the little things, like for a woman, buy the lingerie and wear it for yourself. Buy the flowers and put them around your house. Light the candles, listen to the music, take yourself to the nice dinner. Everything that you want, a partner to do for you. And for the guy, same thing, like exercise because it feels good, not because you're trying to get a woman. Throw yourself into your career because you want to, not because you're trying to make money to impress a woman or a man, another man too, whatever it is. But we have to start giving to ourselves what we want other people to give to us. That's one. the other is when life comes along and smashes you, maybe don't try to get up right away. Maybe sit in that for a little bit. Sit in the swirling, because the solutions and the path out is usually not what we think. And then the third is it comes back to the little things. Just start doing the tiny things that bring joy, whatever they are, and realize that what you love to do is different than what somebody else loves to do. So that's really unique to your own destiny. Some people love fishing. Some people love doing taxes. Some people love dancing or surfing or whatever. Go do those things. Even if you think you suck at them, just go try.
Which is why you're back on the mountain.
Yes, it is.
What is the choice that you made, and what is the choice we each get to make when we're in this place? I mean, first off, you made a choice to live. You said, well, let's just take it one day at a time. What's the big picture choice that we get to make?
Gratitude. I think it's gratitude every day. We have so much, and we're somehow, I don't understand it, we're conditioned to complain and to look at what we lack. And because this world is a world of infinite possibilities, I mean, you could have a $30 million home and the plane, and then you still lack something, So I think it's incredibly important, and I have to remind myself all the time, don't complain. Just try your hardest not to complain. And be grateful, and then looking for satisfaction in each moment. That for me has been a huge game changer.
Awesome. When did you realize the journey is about self-love, and what were the choices you started to make on top of doing what brings you joy in this moment?
I think when I finally started feeling better and stronger and more alive, I started spending time with a man who was another emotionally unavailable person. And I saw myself, after everything I'd been through, recreating the same pattern. And it wasn't as loud, the volume wasn't turned up as high, but he still was emotionally unavailable. And one day I just was sobbing about it. And I said, you know what, enough, enough, enough. I'm never trying to get love from somebody who can't give it anymore. I can love them. That feels beautiful, the love coming out of me projected onto them. But to expect it to come back, especially from people that aren't able to even do that, I have got to stop. And that's when I realized I had to turn it around and look in the mirror and say, you're so beautiful, even though all the advertising out there tells me that I'm too old and, I have wrinkles and whatever it is. To just start to develop the strength of mind to start counterbalancing the messaging we're constantly getting that we're not good enough.
It's fascinating to me. I feel like bringing it back full circle to dance. For you to get back into dance, you almost had to look in the mirror and you're going, oh, I don't want to look, haven't danced in so long. How did you say, I'm going to love myself up no matter what? I'm not going to torture myself. I'm not going to withhold from myself, but I'm going to just basically dance and love myself back into total health?
I started looking at the people that we find attractive, and they're people with life force coursing through them, all different ages, all different sizes and shapes, but we're drawn to people that have this light, this vibrant life force energy, and it has nothing to do with the physicality. And so I just started saying, I want to cultivate that in myself, and how sometimes you look in a certain mirror and you look good, and other mirrors you don't look good. So I decided anytime I look in a mirror that I don't look good, it's just a bad mirror.
I like it.
And then I decided any photo that I don't like the way I look in, well, that's, the iPhone camera, it's not very good. And just really going like, it was a mind flip. If I think I'm beautiful and I think that I feel good in my body, shouldn't that be the only thing that matters? And I'm not saying I can do this all the time, but I try every day.
Beautiful. On that note, on the everyday note, what are your current practices that you're doing?
I meditate every morning. I wake up much earlier than I need to for whatever I have to do for the day, so that I have an hour and a half to sit. And I don't do a formal practice like I used to. I can't. I'm a little scarred from that. But I luxuriate over coffee. I listen to devotional chanting music. I spend a lot of time doing that. And then I meditate for 15 minutes and sometimes 20. And I always try to get in nature or exercise. And I need a lot of alone time. So,
do you do anything? You talked about leaning into things. Do you do any writing or self-reflective practice to get the words out that are inside of you? Or is it from listening?
I think well, when I write, I always pray before I write that I'll bring light through me and a purity, a pure energy through and a clarity. And I've learned to not be afraid of writing terrible first drafts. So then I just kind of channel in a way, or vomit everything out. Um, and I don't write when I don't feel like it. A lot of people say, oh, you have to write every day. But I can tell when I'm in a sparkly mood where what's coming through is clear, and when I'm not in a sparkly mood. So I don't write them.
I have got to ask then, how did you do it? How did you get yourself to write this book? Because you put yourself right back in the burn zone.
It started off as a catharsis, and it was just journaling, and that was pure vomit, honestly. The same rage and anger and hatred and pain over and over and over again, over 500 pages. And then as I started healing, I started refining it. And then I found an amazing editor. And so she helped to really strengthen the book. And then the process took so long that as I kept revising, the light was coming through me. So it was coming into the book, and the dark, icky, sticky, yucky stuff was kind of leaving.
Did you have to? It's cathartic, maybe on some level to write, but particularly if you're going back and editing, there are times and places where, well, I guess maybe I'm answering my own question, where you said you don't write when you don't want to write. But if you're in there, what would you do to get yourself out and heal again?
I would write until I was exhausted by it. Kind of like a good cry, where you just kind of reach the end and you're done. And then I did that enough that then I became desensitized. But my editor was so great, because she would see the parts where I didn't go deep, and she would say, I know it's hard for you, but I don't believe all of this right here. I think there's a lot more going on, and I need you to write it. Wow. So, yeah.
From there, what advice would you give to parents to help them heal those holes in their heart so that they don't have to go off necessarily in this direction unless it's for their highest good as well?
Do you mean all parents, or parents of people in cults, or?
No, well, heck, let's go with both. First, let's go with, we always want to ask, Jessica will not let me get off the mic without asking a question for parents and their kids. But then we do have parents with kids in cults today. So we're going to go for both. I'm taking choice C.
Okay. Well, so my advice to parents is that kids are so intuitive and they're so wise. And when you're not balanced and centered and joyful and drawing from your own source, they look at you and they say, well, I don't want to listen to what you have to say, because you're clearly not doing it. So I would say for parents to know that their children have their own inner guidance, and that they're always looking towards joy and feeling better. And so when they do the things they do, it's because they think it will bring them joy and realign them. You know how they tune you out when you're yelling at them? It's because they know how to realign instantly. I don't want to listen to this. It doesn't feel good. Yeah. And so for parents, for parents of both, I say, make yourself the best version of yourself possible. And then the kids will actually look at you and say, how do I be like you? How do I do what you do? You seem so balanced and calm and centered, when other adults aren't. And when you get frustrated with your kids, I would say, take a moment, and before you react in frustration, when you're not aligned and you're not clear, say, I'm so angry. I'm so disappointed that I need to take a moment and go get centered and go get calmed, because I'm not going to talk to you when I'm feeling like this. I won't be clear. And so then you're showing them what it looks like to be out of balance, and then to go get in balance on your own.
Beautiful. And then for parents with kids who are in cults?
I would say that you can't get them out. I'm so sorry to say that. Nobody could have pulled me out, because it's faith-based, and faith is a belief in something you can't see. And so they're sure that they're in the right place. And so again, I would say, you can say, I love you. I'm concerned about you. I'm always here for you, but I trust that you're doing what's right for you. And then take the energy, that concerned energy, and put it into yourself, and make yourself the best, strongest version of yourself there is, so that when they look at you, they see somebody balanced that's just sitting there on the outskirts loving them. Just, I love you. You're perfect just the way you are.
Woohoo! On that note, what brings you the greatest happiness, or what I call the woohoo factor?
It's being of service to others. It's this type of what we're doing now, being able to talk to somebody who is hurting or in pain or not seeing clearly, and being able to talk to them or write for them in a way that helps them remember who they are, and that they have their own inner guidance, and that they are meant to live a life of joy. I love the way that feels.
Is there something you say to people to help them remember who they are?
I've learned that by sitting and being incredibly present, just listening a lot of times, that clear, open space helps them feel it. They feel it internally.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
On that note, where can people go to find your beautiful, and guys, I got to tell you, well worth the read, but if you stop early on, you're going to be going, Michael, what the? But well worth it to find your beautiful book, The Burn Zone, and find out more.
Thank you. They can find it on, you can find out all about me on my website, reneelinnell.com. And this book you can find at your local indie bookstore. If they don't have it, they'll order it for you. And then, of course, Amazon.com and barnesandnoble.com.
And can I have that URL one more time for people?
It's Renee, Renee, Linnell, Linnell.com.
Fantastic. And if you didn't catch Renee, ReneeLinnell.com, if you didn't catch ReneeLinnell.com, come on over to InspireNationShow.com and we'll get you over to Renee, ReneeLinnell.com as well. Renee, this has been phenomenal. Before I let you go, and I can't believe we're neighbors. We're going to have to run into each other sometime. I'm looking forward to this. Before I let you go, any last words of wisdom you want to share with people today?
Please, please find a way to realize how amazing you are. And please take the little things that make you different, that you hid as a child in order to fit in, whether it's, your accent, your sexuality, the color of your skin, the weird things you like. Please turn the volume up on those, because we need you to be the loudest, brightest, weirdest, different, most unique version of yourself there is. That's how we change this world. We love ourselves. We need more love, and it starts within.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. And that is a mighty woohoo! Thank you so much, Renee. This has been phenomenal.
Thank you so much. I really loved that.
Awesome. So for everyone out there, this is Michael Sandler saying, be well, have fun, get the burn zone, and begin taking back your power today and shine bright. Woohoo! This was awesome, Renee.
Thank you so much. I love that. Yeah, you're so bright.
Thank you, and you as well. It is so much fun talking with you.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed it, be sure to like below. Also, leave your comments. Have some real fun with it. Subscribe to our channel where you're going to get more great videos, more interviews coming up. And check out our website, InspireNationShow.com. That's where you'll find tips, blogs, information, videos you won't find anywhere else, and useful and helpful resources to really help you kickstart your life and to shine bright. Thanks so much again. Thank you for your support. Like, comment, subscribe. See the website. Thanks so much and have fun. Of course, shine bright. Woohoo!